for a couple years now, and we've really liked what we've seen. I will tell you, we have been intensively, we had like several trials going this year, and we've been collecting data all summer. Some of that data is on a sheet over here on this table. There's a sheet here on the side towards me that you can see telling in a couple different crops what we saw, a couple different data points. We really are liking, and the reason why, Mark's a little too timid to go into it, but the reason why is because it's feeding the biology. So QLF, they make a couple different carbon-based fertilizers. The Boost product he was talking about is basically a tank mix partner that you can put with almost any fertilizer because it's low pH. Doesn't really work well with calcium and potassium, but it'll work well with phos, nitrogen, everything else. And it really, what it does is when you apply that fertilizer, it not only binds together the fertilizer with the carbohydrates, so it gives you a better, there's like better plant uptake and everything because it's combined to an organic particle, but it's also feeding the microbes right in that root system. So it's feeding the microbes right where you want that to be taken up by the root. That's why you see so much better like root response and all that when you put so what they do is their carbon is more of like I'm gonna say it's gonna be like mashed potatoes, energy now. So that's why we call it Boost, right? Because everything you put it with, it gives it a boost. It's kind of like, you think of it this way. What we're doing when we plant, and what Austin talked about on the cover crops, is what you're basically doing is you're taking sunshine, air, and water, and you're putting it in the soil. That's all you're doing. What Boost is, and the carbon products that QLF sells, is we're basically taking that sunshine from somewhere else and supercharging our system with it. That's basically what we're doing. And then we figured out a way to put chemistry with it that makes it really sweet, to where we can mix it with a lot of different things. Plus you have all the extra benefits like drift control, it's low pH, it mixes well with stuff. So it's a really good tank partner on foliars. Plant sucks it in, it says, hey, this is sugar, I like it. So anyway, that's all I'll say on it there, but you can read more over here, and there's a product guide if you want more information about it. Really sweet little book, gives a lot of information there. So, any questions?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Working on cover crops, have you tried to add the biochar products along with your cover crops research?
Biochar. We have not done any work with biochar so far. Now we have done work and applications with like humic products with cover crops in seed treatments and stuff like that, and seen really positive results. Dennis is going to talk some about that later. No biochar though. We haven't got into that.
Second question.
Uh-huh.
You talk about, trying to wake up the products that are in the soil, and before and after. Have you done any kind of analysis of the soil before and then after adding the fertilizer with the Boost, and see if there is any difference in the bio?
That's a great question. So, yes and no. What we have done would be more just rough test where you measure the respiration. That is when there's a test you can run that measures the respiration of the soil over a 24-hour period. That just tells you anything living in there is going to breathe. It measures that, so it tells you a rough mass measurement. Actually, Frank had it in his slides, and Mark didn't show it, but they have actually done the very same thing you were talking about, where they took a soil that was, I don't know if it was sterile, I think it was just an untreated soil. And they did like a shotgun analysis on the microbiology in it. So they got like basically all the DNA and said, we have these groups in this population. And then they applied their product, their program, and at the end they tested it again. And it's actually pretty impressive. So yeah, that test has been done, we just haven't done it. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
On the biochar, just so people know, biochar is a great. No, on the biochar is a great home for biology. So your low organic, low CEC soils, biochar is very good because it gives them a home, a place to live. It's not microbe food. Sometimes there's a confusion where the Boost is a microbe food. It's a complex, simple sugar is complex carbon, so it's a food chain to build microbial communities. The molasses is just simple sugar, so you get a Boost and a Crash where you have more complex foods, you have a longer chain which builds microbial stability within your soil environment.
Yeah, the reason my question was on biochar because they say that product supposed to be 30% increase on carbon that you're adding into the soil. And just was wondering that was going to be part of your task?
Well, yeah, thank you for the question. It's something to look at. There's some studies being done right now at NMSU on biochar, which is interesting. What Dennis was saying is I like to think about the soil, and I'll be done here real quick. We're not quite up to our time, so I feel okay to do this. I like to think about the soil and your biology in the soil like a fire, okay? Because that's basically what it is. It's aerobic respiration, which is an oxidative process, okay? A fire is an oxidative process. All right, so in the world of carbon, your fire is like your biology, okay? Biochar and humics are going to be like big fat oak logs. They're really heavy, complex carbs. Well, not even carbs. They're long carbon chains that can't really be broken down by microbes. If you have a tiny little fire and you throw a whole bunch of logs on top of it, you're just going to get smoke. And you might even put the fire out. But what you can do is you can put some little bit of fuel on there, like some cardboard, and then you can shoot some lighter fluid on it. Now you have something bigger. Now you can put some sticks, and eventually you can really load the logs on, and now you have a roaring fire that's going to last a long time. So when we think about building up biology in our soil, that's what we have to think about. The other thing is, what does a fire need? Oxygen. If you do not have pore space and airflow into your soil, you can pump as much lighter fluid as you want, but you're not going to get a good fire. So these are the things we think about, and these are the tools we can use to incrementally make that process go and build a biology fire in the soil. So you had a question?
Yeah, because I just read a book about growing soil, and she said that the writer of that book said to put a small amount of biochar in the base of your hole when you're planting, like a tomato plant or something like that, because it will like be like he said, you know, it'll just make a better environment for your biology. It'll increase. It'll make a better biology.
So exactly. So it's like what you're doing is you're setting up the environment. You have to put something there, especially when we don't have organic matter, that's going to create structure, that's going to create pore space, that's going to provide some carbon. Now you have an environment where you can get that going, but you're still going to have to probably do some relay things to get it going.
No, yeah, it's a home.
Yeah, it's a home, exactly.
So my question then is, what he was saying is to put a little bit in the bottom of your hole when you're planting is not a bad thing. Correct?
Absolutely not. It's just different functions, right? You can't rely on one thing to do it all.
But if you want to build stable, microbes can't produce their own carbon. Most microbes, some can, but for the most part, microbes can't produce carbon. So what biology needs is they need a carbon source in order to reproduce and grow. And so, yeah, that's why if I'm going to build carbon in my soil, I'm not going to try and do it with biochar. I'm going to do it with cover crops and biology. Dead microbial biomass is going to create more stable humus and carbon from a healthy photosynthesizing plant that puts exudates into that environment. That's a whole system that we'll talk about later today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then with the carbon and the biochar, if you've been using the carbon and the biochar to do the cover crop, you're making the environment with the biochar or the carbon. So then when you grow the cover crop, you're feeding the biology, but now they have a place to live where you put the biochar or the cover or the carbon. So then they have a place to live. So then your biology will repeat year over year. It will slowly increase, like I was saying, at a level, start at a higher level. And that's where the carbon is so important. If you're on a crappy soil, it gives the biology somewhere to live to move on to next year.
That's right. And in nature, where does the carbon come from? Someone say it. And how does it get there? Through a plant. That's how. So all we're doing, so all we're doing with biochar, even humic, it's just dead organic material. That's all it is that's under the ground. So we're just basically supercharging it, layering it in there. But what's really going to give you the increase is when you go back, do the way the nature does it, and put a plant there.
That's food for microbes.
Yeah, that's like a cover crop root is like a all-you-can-eat buffet for a microbe. Whereas you put out some molasses, whatever, it's great, but you know, it's kind of like eating at McDonald's. It's sort of balanced.